What's your favourite beetle?
You can't actually ask me that question. I was that weird kid who had pet woodlice and ant farms and worms in a jar. So this is the Tax Lab. This is, I think, the core of entomology. So in here we have pretty much all of our collections. I worked here from the end of 2021 to the beginning of 2022. That was kind of the birth of the collection as it is now. We moved everything from old, janky store boxes into very nice cabinets and drawers, which is how an entomological collection should be. Been back for 6 months and progressing the collection even further. This is quite interesting. So these are things that we have found in other store boxes that became unearthed recently. So they haven't been incorporated into the main collection. So we've gone through them, we've figured out what we want to keep, because we've got limited space obviously, and we're like forestry focused, not all of it is relevant. And then everything has to be frozen because there is the potential for pests, things like museum beetle and Anthrenus, that can eat your specimens. So what we do is we freeze everything, which kills off any adults or larvae, and then they can be put into these lovely cabinets. These are all Agrilus convexicollis that Katie Reed gave me. It's actually the other video, that was the scoop of stuff that she gave me. But they've all been mounted up, pointed. So they're going to go into the main collection because we're lacking things like that. I found a master's at Imperial. It's taught with the Natural History Museum and it's Taxonomy, Biodiversity and Evolution. And there was a lot of space there for you to specialise in any way that you wanted to. So I went down an entomological route and I started volunteering at the Natural History Museum in the Coleoptera department. Prior to that, I always thought I might be a lepidopterist. Times have changed. You can't know everything about Diptera and Hymenoptera and Coleoptera and Lepidoptera all at once. It's one of those fields where you have to find what you're really passionate about. This is the dry pinned insects, which is my favourite bit. It's very exciting. So let's do Coleoptera. Everything is arranged taxonomically. If you have a good grasp of insect taxonomy, you should be able to find what you're looking for. We're currently in Coleoptera, and then everything within the order is, again, organised taxonomically. So we start with things like carabids, and then right at the end we have weevils. In the middle there's cerambycids. These are actually really nice, I'll show you some. So these are really relevant to us because obviously they are wood feeding. It's quite an interesting collection in a way. It's different from other collections that I've seen because we have such a focus on British forestry, but then within that we have foreign species that are a threat to us. And it's quite important in the context of our collection that we distinguish between what is native and what isn't. So we came up with this system, which might change, but things that are foreign are marked with a big red cross. The primary use that we have found people use it for is making comparison with new material. Things like if advisory gets something in, they're not sure what it is. I've seen notes people have written saying check in reference collection, and they can compare it with what we have, and that helps you make an identification. The other thing we use it for is training for identification. It also helps people keep track of what we have had here in the past. So you can come in here and say, have we seen that beetle before in the UK? Yes, we have, because it's in the collections. So these are quite interesting because they were actually made quite a long time ago, and one of the reasons we've kept them is for kind of historical value. Let's look at pests of the maturing forest. So I actually don't know when this was made, but it's fairly old. And what's so fun about it is somebody has gone through and pinned in little vials of wet samples. So you've got larvae and then you've got dry pinned adults in the same display drawer. So this is the kind of stuff that we decided to hold on to and keep it as it is, because there was some question about, do we take these specimens and pop them in the main collection? Would they have more value there? But we decided that this is a piece of FR history and it's quite important to keep it as it was. I would say it's probably made in the 80s, and maybe the labels have been updated, but I don't know. This is much older. So you can see it's done on a typewriter, which is really fun. Specimens of Diptera ex Farnham Royal. So this I think is pretty old. They don't even have data labels on. Again, really cool piece of history. Somebody's put that together, put a lot of work into it. I'm inclined to say this is probably like 50s or 60s. It's not that old, but it's pretty cool. Just because you wouldn't see something like this now. If you're careful with them and you handle them correctly, they should last a really long time. And that's one of the really nice things about entomological collections, is that if you treat them well, they will last indefinitely, which is very cool, because then you have this evolving record of insects across time. This is quite interesting, I haven't shown you yet. This is the old wet collection. These are things that you can't store dry, like soft-bodied insects like caterpillars, beetle larvae, aphids. Aphids is a big thing. You can't dry an aphid. They're too squishy. This stuff, before we got to it, had probably not been touched in 3 decades. So we're trying our best to figure out what's in there, what is of value, and what to do with it. So it's all going to be rehoused so people can come in and actually use it and look at it, which is great, because there is some interesting stuff in there. Let me show you. So these are larvae of Prionus coriarius, which is a huge, it's our largest longhorn, our largest cerambycid. Obviously the larvae are equally as large. I mean, I find that fascinating. That one's 1967, mega. I love taxonomy. I love how things are related to each other, how they diverge from each other, what things have in common, what they don't. That's something that I find really interesting, and that's a lot of what is involved in looking after a collection, is keeping taxonomy up to date. Taxonomy changes all the time. There's always a new paper that says, hang on, these beetles should actually be in that group over there. There's something in me that likes collecting things, a collection of beautiful things that appeals to me. I think having the opportunity to create and maintain, because, you know, I feel I helped make this when I was here a couple of years ago. It wasn't in a state that anyone could use, and it's such an important resource and people weren't able to access it. So I think making something that I love accessible to other people is really important to me.